We are back on around the Premier League, and plenty of things have happened this weekend in the Premier League. The table has shifted a little bit. Arsenal, Manchester City level on points up there. Leicester City still rough on the feathers in the top four, and Crystal Palace with a great and surprising, I would say, victory over Liverpool at the weekend. So, bringing in our friend, the True Geordie, again to discuss things. How's it going, mate? Hopefully you don't die on the clip. I know you're coming down with a little bit of a cold or a cough, but I'm sure you'll get through it.
We'll get through it, mate.
All right, so first of all, you'll be happy. You won this weekend against Bournemouth. Great result.
Yeah, the result was great, mate. 3 points. I mean, the performance was fucking terrible. But in the last 3 games, we've dominated every game before this. We've only won one of those games. So to play badly in a game and win, I'll take it.
Absolutely. Well, all the results at this point in the season, especially the scrapping it at the bottom half, you got to take whatever you can. So if you don't play well and you get the result, that's what happens. So we'll get straight to it. Best and worst, plenty of things to talk about. Some pretty dire performances out there, I would say. Some really hard games to watch. But start off with your best, mate. Who stood out to you this weekend as one of the best for the Premier League?
It was a really crap weekend, really.
I
agree.
Wasn't
like, I was watching the results. I was like, it got to half time on the Saturday, and I was like, is anyone going to fucking score here? Do you know what I mean? It wasn't really a great week. Who would you say is your best, mate?
I completely agree. In terms of, I watched the Manchester United game, and again, I thought they were very lacklustre. Rooney was struggling again. I thought that Jesse Lingard had a good performance, but I think that for me, I keep saying it, but Leicester, how they can continue to pull themselves out of the rut, not even the rut, consider to pull themselves out of games where at some points they don't look as if they're performing to the best of their ability, but they still win games. Jamie Vardy has been phenomenal once more. And one thing I want to talk about, which probably wins for me, is Leicester's camaraderie, right? So Jamie Vardy runs through one-on-one, wins a penalty, speed is phenomenal. Then Mahrez steps up because I guess he's the go-to penalty taker. And he just gives it over to Vardy. He says, Vardy, okay, you've been phenomenal so far. You can't miss. Here's the penalty, mate. You take it. And what does Vardy do? He bullets it into the roof of the net. No doubts about it at all. And I just think that stands for Leicester as a whole. So for me, I think that they've just been frightening. And it poses the question, how long do they keep this going? Do you think that they can still battle for a strong position in the Premier League?
I have to say, I think that I've been blown away by Leicester. At the end of last season, they finished really strong and they've continued it this season. And Ranieri, he must be a nicer manager to play under than the last guy, who was obviously a bit miserable for the most part. So I think he's given them a bit of a lift. He's brought them together, tactically very sound, Ranieri. And with Vardy, I don't think they can carry on this kind of form. I mean, this is literally, he's in like Cristiano form right now. Yeah. I've nicknamed them James Vardinho because it's like it's ridiculous at this point. And Mahrez too. They are actually statistically the 2 best players in the league right now, both playing for Leicester. Like, it's like Barcelona. Like, it's ridiculous. So I don't think they can continue it. Yeah. But as someone who loves seeing an underdog win, I'd love them to get top 6.
Absolutely, so would I. And we'll touch on that in another clip, which you better stay tuned for. But I guess we'll just go to the standard.
I will say, if you want to push us on a best, I'm going to give credit to Spurs.
Yeah.
Not for the result, because it was a 1-1 draw, but the performance. They dominated Arsenal in their own backyard. And Pochettino now hasn't lost since the opening day of the season. In a team last year where it was heavily reliant on Harry Kane, you're now looking at a solid back 4, a midfield 3 that is going to protect that back 4. Lamella, he's even making Lamella look decent.
Exactly.
Bloody hell. And Eriksen and Kane, obviously quality players. So I think that Spurs, if you're looking at who can make top 4, you look at Liverpool, who obviously have weaknesses. The defence is a shambles at times. The keeper, and they're not really consistent. Chelsea are the unbelievable self-destruct right now. Yeah. I look at Spurs and I think you probably got the least amount of weaknesses out of the teams challenging for top 4.
Absolutely. Well, you'll set me up, and I'm just going to go ahead and finish it by talking about the North London derby. I mean, I expected it, predicted it 1-1. I told my dad to put £20 on it for me, so I took a nice little bucket from it over the weekend. It was every single platform I was on. Spurred on, I did tactics. 120 Sports, I talked about it. Everyone, I said 1-1 is a dead-on result for this game, because this is I give credit to Spurs, but I also, surprisingly, I'm going to give somewhat credit to Arsenal being at home because riddled with some injuries, coming off the back of an absolute pounding by Bayern Munich. I thought that this is a game that on paper last year, you may agree or disagree, they would lose. I think this is a game where it would be a clear banana peel. Arsene Wenger would see it as a banana peel and direct all his players right on it, and they would slip up, and it would be a result where, like, oh, Jesus, Arsenal are off. Now they've been thrown off balance. One big defeat to a huge team is just going to throw them out the window. But I thought that they bounced back in the second half pretty well. Harry Kane had an early goal in the first half, and I thought Tottenham played well. But it was that kind of a game where you get someone like Kieran Gibbs who's going to put the ball into the back of the net because Arsenal weren't in full flow. They didn't have some of their star players, but they still were able to capitalise on what worked for them. And Mesut Ozil, of course, we don't give him as much credit as many people would want us to, but you do give him credit now that he's got, 7 consecutive assists in Premier League games. So I think he broke a record there. So he has to take some credit for that. So as much as I think Tottenham did well to get a point, I still think that Arsenal, this is a clear game where they would have lost last season.
Yeah, I think the main worry for Arsenal in this game shouldn't be the result or, the fact that Ozil, although he got an assist, he broke the record for most consecutive. And Alexis Sanchez, Ozil and Sanchez weren't getting enough of the ball.
Yeah.
The only thing that would concern us is silly defensive errors from Koscielny. He's better than that.
Yeah.
And Cazorla and Coquelin, that's your first choice. Yeah. That's not second string. That's Arsenal's first choice. And Spurs played more recently. They played on the Thursday. And they just got bossed, man. Yeah. That would actually worry me a little bit.
The thing that we have to touch on as well is when you probably give Arsene Wenger this result and tell him that Manchester City are going to tie with Aston Villa, he'll take it on paper because Man City, I think we'll get on to our worst. They're not my worst because I thought that Aston Villa, who could have been in a running for my best based on the fact that they just changed the manager, I thought they were so structured. They were frustrating to play against, and that's what you have to be at this point in the season. You no longer can try and play any fancy football. You can't go out there expecting to try and compete with teams on a technical standpoint, so you just need to be frustrating. You need to be hard to beat. I think that's what the teams like Leicester, Crystal Palace, Southampton have based their success on, is being hard to beat, but then also hitting teams on the counter-attack, which Leicester do better than anyone at the moment. But Aston Villa finally understood that they need to be hard to play against. They need to make that atmosphere somewhere where teams are not going to come in and feel like they're going to get comfortable. Everyone, including me, predicted a 3-1, 2-0, 3-0 victory for Manchester City. But now, Wilfried Bony's out injured. They struggle against Aston Villa. What do you see happening with them? Because they don't have another striker to come in and take up that role.
Yeah, Man City, they do have the other kid, don't they? The third lad.
Yeah, the third lad in line. I can't remember his name. But no,
I can't remember his name. He actually looks pretty decent, to be fair. Even still, with the level of quality they've got behind that, they should still be able to go on and just keep winning games, in my opinion. But whether they will or they won't is another thing. Now, looking back on it, getting rid of Dzeko is becoming more and more stupid by the day.
Mm-hmm. He's on form for Roma.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And when I look at, make a little segue here into the other worst team, I would have to say, you're saying you need to be hard to beat. And I think one team that's too proud to do that is Chelsea. I think that they're still trying to play open, expansive football instead of just saying, all right, let's stop fucking conceding goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about, first of all, I think we're just dishing out best and worst all over the place, but that's what makes the Premier League good, is Stoke, they've now beat Chelsea twice in consecutive weeks, beating them obviously in penalty kicks and then beating them in the league game. And I thought, despite Chelsea controlling, I think they had 65% of possession to Stoke's 35%, I still thought that Stoke were the more threatening team to score goals because Chelsea playing it side to side, trying to play that expansive football that you talked about, never really looked like they had a cutting edge. Diego Costa, I'm going to say this boldly, he looks a shadow of himself. He looks like the Diego Costa we've seen for Spain in the World Cup. Because
he's not being direct enough, is he?
No, exactly. And there was a couple of chances where he could have taken a shot, and you'd expect Diego Costa, you'd put your life on him to shoot because he has got that kind of greedy side to him as a striker, which strikers need. But he wouldn't shoot. I think he's second-guessing himself. And you partner that with just sheer lackluster defending. They don't look like they want to win the ball. They look fed up at the back. And I think that it was a good decision to drop Fabregas. It was a good decision. And I think that they played some of the better stuff that I've seen of them play this season. They kept the ball well at times, and they did look okay going forward in the counter-attack. But again, when they get into that final third. Whereas last season, you'd be petrified of Chelsea getting the ball to Hazard. You'd be like, all right, there's bound to be a goal here. It's as if Stoke just went, nah, it's not going to happen. I'm not scared. I'm not scared here. So no one is scared of Chelsea anymore. And Stoke, credit to them, took full advantage of this and came away with a crucial victory.
There was one point in that game, mate, where I can't remember, it was a left wing. I'm assuming it was Hazard. He has the ball and he looks up to deliver across into the box.
Yeah.
You have 4 Stoke defenders, 3 or 4 Stoke midfielders before you even have Diego Costa breaking into the box.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's wrong with this fucking picture?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, mate? You should be on the last shoulder. You should be behind the 4 midfielders and on the very last shoulder of your last defender. He's not even on the last shoulder of the midfield.
Yeah, and it's sad to see someone like Pedro as well, who we've known as a great player for Barcelona. It looks like the tricks and flicks are there still, and he looks tidy at times, but it's as if that he's been sucked in to this, like the life he's been sucked on. The Dementor of Chelsea has sucked the life out of him going forward, you know what I mean? And it's struggling to watch, and I just can't help but think, okay, Jose Mourinho, clear target on his back, take him out the game for a suspension. The same nuts and bolts are falling apart there as well at the back. The defensive formation that they've known and loved is awful. So to transition into the last team that I think are lucky that Chelsea are hitting self-destruct mode, because more focus should be put on them, is Liverpool, right? So they have a great performance against Chelsea. I thought they played very well. Then they come at home where you're expecting, I was going to predict that Liverpool could potentially make a good run to get in the top 5. And then they just lose a game that they clearly should be winning. Now, Crystal Palace are a good team, but trust me, I just was frustrated by this.
Crystal Palace have just got Liverpool's number, haven't they, mate?
Yeah,
I mean, they always seem to beat them. And before Pardew came in charge, have always been the bogey team for some reason. And I think one of the main reasons is because the strength of Crystal Palace is fast wingers.
Yeah.
And the weakness of Liverpool is fullbacks who overcommit.
Absolutely.
And get caught out by those fast wingers time and time again. So it's obvious what's going to happen. And, Moreno leaves himself open regularly. And I like Klein. Klein's great going forward, but he does leave himself open occasionally. So it's just a match made in hell for them. And even so, I will give Liverpool some credit. They should have had at least a draw out of that game. If Benteke had been on his normal game and hadn't missed that sitter, it would have been 2-1 at that point, and they probably would have gone on to win it. But, what the hell is Mignolet playing that? A cross comes in and he's like giving it back to him. What the hell was that?
Yeah, I think that's what's frustrating about Liverpool, and the fans must be more frustrated than anything, watching a good performance where everyone kind of thought, all right, this is a turning point. Jurgen Klopp's going to have us on the straight and narrow. Great victory against Chelsea. And then you go and play a team that is a good team. Trust me, Crystal Palace under Alan Pardew, I've gave them a lot of credit this season, are good. But you just, you kind of want to be reinstalled with the faith that Liverpool will win at home, that they will continue to win.
Well, they should be winning, because at the end of the day, the last 4 games Palace have played, they've lost 3 and drawn 1.
Yeah.
So they're not on a great run.
Yeah, it was a good way to bounce back. And Alan Pardew, I think, was somewhat being found out for his style of football that he was playing. You do say that he was pushing a lot forward, especially in the wide areas. And I thought Liverpool would have counter-attacked that. But this is what shows that in the Premier League, you can never really predict unless it is those consistent teams. And even those consistent teams still don't look as consistent as they once were. And I don't know, it's a little frustrating when you want to see a team like Liverpool get back to the way they were, but at the same time it makes this league so entertaining, and that's why we continue to watch and love it. So plenty of talking points in there about the Premier League, plenty of things for you guys to talk about in the comment section. Let us know, what do you think? Who was your best and worst? Tweet us at Francis_Maxwell, at True Geordie NUFC, and come back again next week for Around the Premier League.